This is my 50,000 mile review on my MK7 GLI, and here's what I honestly think about the car long term, including my recommended mods and what I love or hate about the car. But first, let's play the B-rolls. Alright, let's go for a drive. Note that this car does have an exhaust, so it is louder than how it came from the factory. From stock, it's pretty much dead quiet except the pumped-in audio that you can change through the menu. In comfort mode, it's pretty much off. In sport mode, it is louder. And let's go through that menu so we can change the drive modes right now. But before I forget, let's listen to how it sounds. This comes with 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, coming from a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine paired with either a 6-speed manual or a 7-speed dual-clutch. The EA38 Gen 3 motor found in this car has been around for quite a while and is one hell of a 4-cylinder engine. People talk about the Subaru EJ25 and the Mitsubishi 4G63 being highly capable of handling an immense amount of power, but these VW motors are notoriously good for being tuned without losing any reliability while pushing 400-500 horsepower pretty easily. The motor here is rated amongst one of the best 4-cylinders ever made, not for necessarily being the strongest or most capable one, but the best balance where you're able to push such high horsepower numbers and still achieve over 30-40 miles per gallon. Out here on these roads though, it is pretty comfortable, especially in comfort mode, because the steering is a lot lighter and the suspension is a lot softer than it would be in normal or sport mode. The GLI sits on the MQB platform, sharing pretty much everything from chassis to transmission to suspension and engine with the MK7 GTI, which is pretty great given the car is a lot cheaper than the GTI. The car comes with dynamic chassis control, which stiffens up the car in sport mode and softens up the car in comfort, which is quite a nice feature for a budget-friendly family sedan. The rear suspension is independent, not multi-link, unlike the regular Jetta, and the ride is actually pretty stiff in general. It does get kind of busy, especially if you're on lowering springs, but it is a sports car, so I actually like the stiffer ride. Alright, let's throw it in sport mode and see how it does. Up front is an electronically controlled mechanical limited slip differential, which sounds confusing at first, but it's essentially Volkswagen's very high-tech XDS Haldex system, which reads input and traction on the front wheels when cornering to distribute power among the front wheels as needed, which, using the braking system in conjunction to the diff, it slightly applies braking pressure to the inner wheel and sending more power to the outside wheels to rotate cars around the corner, or their front-wheel drive cars around the corner, which is how Volkswagen makes these front-wheel drive cars very fun to drive. The steering feel in sport is heavier than in comfort, and it's pretty responsive and connected to the road, pretty much on par with BMW M Sport steering wheels, but it isn't nearly as heavy, even in sport mode, but it's still pretty nicely weighted. The brakes are the same as the MK7 GTI and Golf R, which is just one huge piston brake and some decently sized 345mm ventilated rotors, and they definitely have some bite, but if you're tracking it, the OEM pads fade instantly. I would recommend putting on some aftermarket pads that don't heat up as quick, especially because it is only one piston, but in terms of street use, they are great. The transmission is quick and fast to respond and probably can't be beat for this price point. The shifts are sharp, but they lack any thump in character like the Golf R1 or the previous VW GTIs, but it is a really quick and fast shifting transmission. So this GLI has been tuned for a Stage 3, which is an IS38 turbo pulled from an Audi S3 or Golf R, which is a direct bolt-on part since they share pretty much the same engine and everything as the Golf R and S3. An S3 intercooler, an integrated engineering cold air intake, and a CTS catted downpipe along with the MagnaFlow res, and a valve muffler off of AliExpress is what I have set up. In terms of suspension, I'm running EMD lowering springs, and I got an 034 rear sway bar, front strut bar, and an 034 dog bone mount. The car hasn't been dynoed yet, but it should make about 360 wheel horsepower or about 415 crank horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque to be conservative. Looking back at it, it is a lot of work to go from Stage 2 to Stage 3 because of the complexity behind it, in my opinion. If you're going to keep the car for a few years, I'd say just get a JB4 or go for Stage 2. I've been through all the stages and I've had the JB4 on, and I recommend the JB4 over Stage 1 since they push very similar numbers, but you do still have a speed limiter. You don't usually void warranty with the JB4 either, as long as you take it out before bringing it in. And then if you want more power, just go straight for Stage 2, which requires a downpipe and intake. At the Stage 3, meaning IS38 turbo, or any other IS hybrid turbo, it literally means that you're going to spin your front wheel drive car until maybe 50-60 miles per hour on dry tarmac, because the car lacks an all-wheel drive. So the sweet spot for this front wheel drive car is honestly either a JB4 or a Stage 2. My favorite and must-do mods though would be the rear sway bar, which neutralizes a lot of the understeer, definitely making the rear end a lot more playful, and the dog bone mount because it eliminates all the wheel hops between gear shifting and when you're sending it off the dig. What I love most though is that dual personality where when you put it in sport mode, it just becomes alive. It's a complete different animal. It just pulls hard and it grips around corners like nothing with that differential. And then when you put it in comfort mode, it's just normal daily A to B car with great fuel economy. It's a $30,000 car. All you're going to need is a couple $1,000s in mods, and it's going to bring this car from this level to a completely different one, where it's competing with cars that are way out the price league. And I know most of you guys that are interested in this car are going to mod it anyways, and this car has so much room and capabilities for that. In terms of tech features and daily comfort, it cannot be beat for the price. From actual real perforated leather seats that are both heated and ventilated to basic things like memory seats and a pretty cool digital dashboard, a massive sunroof, wireless charging, and many more. It's hard to find this many things in a budget car. Heated seats in the rear, navigation, ambient lighting, these are all things that you have to pay extra for in a premium car, and it comes standard in the GLI. Even the little things like how all the windows for everyone is auto up down is not easy to find in a car that you're not paying premium price for. We can't forget that this car competes with an Elantra, Inline, and a Civic Si. The trunk is massive, and one of my favorite things is when you click the button on the key or the tailgate, the trunk goes up all the way on its own. The GLI is equipped with blind spot monitors and rear cross traffic alert, forward collision warning, adaptive cruise control with stop and go traffic, and lane keep assist, which out of the factory is alright, but with OBD11 you can change it to center you in the lane instead of pushing you back in when you're getting too close to the line. Super useful on long drives or when you're in traffic. Just turn on cruise control and just enjoy the ride. The best part about this car though, especially with gas being $5 a gallon right now, is the fuel economy. The EPA rated it for 24 in the city, 35 on the highway for a combined 28 miles per gallon, which I still get even with an IS38 pushing about 360 to the wheel. Quite impressive for the power you get, especially for road trips and stuff. If you're averaging 60 miles per hour with cruise control on, you can easily get over 40 miles per gallon. One of my biggest pet peeves about the car though is the lack of refinement and the rattles everywhere, including anything you put in the door bins, and Volkswagen knows it because the GTI and the Golf R comes with padding inside the door bin, but I guess it's all part of the cost cutting, which you'll see everywhere from the rear seats, and the build quality, which to be honest isn't a big deal, especially for all the performance and tech and features you get for such a low price. Other than that, there aren't any real issues that I've had with the car, especially with the reliability. It's been pretty great. I do wish the seats were more bucketed. I do wish the interior was a little better, but $31,000 is fully loaded, with the only real option being the extra $1,000 for the dual clutch transmission. This price just cannot be beat for how well-rounded this car is in terms of both performance, power, technology, while being hella fuel efficient and budget friendly. It's a great all-around package. The fact that I can daily this car in comfort mode with the ventilated seats on, have the driver's assist essentially drive me around averaging over 30 miles per gallon, and then when I'm feeling like it, put the car in sport mode, stiffen up the suspension, steering, and easily start gapping some entry-level V8 muscle cars, double in price both in a straight line and on the track is truly amazing. There is no new car for $30,000 that has this much versatility in both performance and livability. This is the best of both worlds.